Hi, and welcome to Phalanx History. On this episode, we will be covering the last cavalry charge of the United States military. On the modern battlefield, with mechanized war machines and unmanned drones flying around, it may come as a surprise that the last U.S. cavalry charge occurred as recently as World War II. Now, before I am corrected in the comments section, I must preface this statement by pointing out that the Green Berets did ride into battle via horseback in Afghanistan as recently as 2001. But the last cavalry charge of a formal horse-mounted cavalry unit occurred in World War II during the Japanese invasion of the Philippines. On January 3, 1942, General Masaharu Hama's 14th Japanese Army captured the Philippine capital of Manila and was threatening to cut off the retreat of Philippine and U.S. troops to the Bataan Peninsula. In order to prevent this disastrous possibility, the elite United States 26th Cavalry Unit, also known as the Philippine Scouts, was given the daunting task of delaying the Japanese troops in order to facilitate the U.S. retreat. The Philippine Scouts were an elite anti-insurgency force founded in 1901 to combat the Morong Rebellion. Their anti-guerrilla combat and high mobility had them regarded as one of the most elite combat units, numbering over 12,000 men by the time of the Japanese invasion. 24-year-old Lieutenant Edwin Price Ramsey was one of the American officers attached to the Philippine Scouts, serving as the commanding officer of a platoon in the 26th Cavalry Regiment. Born in Illinois and raised in Kansas, Ramsey had graduated from Oklahoma Military Academy, where he had developed a love for polo. In June 1941, he volunteered for service with the 26th Cavalry because they had an excellent polo club. Shortly after the Japanese landed in December 1941, Ramsey's platoon was ordered north, where it conducted vital reconnaissance and assisted in rearguard skirmishes. On January 15, 1942, Ramsey and his troops were looking forward to some rest and relaxation following a demanding reconnaissance mission. But a counterattack was being planned, and because he was intimately familiar with the region, he volunteered to assist in the assault. Then things took a different turn. Major General Jonathan Wainwright, commander of the 2nd Corps, wanted to make the Japanese-held village of Morong, strategically located on the west coast of the Bataan Peninsula, the anchor for a defensive line stretching inland to the rugged Mount Natib. On the morning of January 16th, Wainwright ordered Ramsey to take an advance guard into Morong. Ramsey assembled a 27-man force composed of mounted platoons from the 26th Cavalry and headed north along the main road leading to Morong. Upon reaching the Badalan River, which formed part of Morong's eastern border, Ramsey's unit swung west and cautiously approached the seemingly deserted village. Composed of grass huts suspended on stilts with the livestock living beneath the structures, the only stone building was the Catholic church located in the middle of the village. At the village outskirts, Ramsey reorganized his force into squads and ordered a 4-man point unit to lead them in. As the point unit approached the village center, it came under fire from a Japanese advance guard that had just crossed the bridge spanning the river. Ramsey saw in the distance lead elements of the main force beginning to ford the river. If the Japanese troops managed to reach the village in force, Ramsey knew that his outnumbered troops would be overwhelmed. Ramsey then decided to do something the U.S. Army hadn't attempted in more than 50 years, launch a horse cavalry charge against an enemy unit in war. Ramsey quickly signaled his men to deploy into a charging formation. He then raised his pistol and shouted, "Charge!" With troops firing their pistols, galloping cavalry horses smashed into the surprised enemy soldiers, eventually routing them. At a cost of only 3 men wounded, Ramsey and his men held off the Japanese until reinforcements arrived. Ramsey received the Silver Star for his actions in Morong. This victory was short-lived, however, as the Japanese army slowly started to overwhelm the Philippine Peninsula. Shortly before the capitulation of U.S. forces in the Philippines, the troopers of the 26th Cavalry endured the ultimate nightmare of a cavalryman. With provisions running virtually non-existent, the 26 beloved mounts were slaughtered to feed Wainwright's doomed army. Surviving troopers who stoically recall the deaths of their comrades in arms have a hard time holding back tears when describing how it was to shoot their own horses. One soldier recounted, "They shared all our dangers, loving and trusting us, as we did with them. There's a special bond, and we were the last to share it."